Hello everybody, my name is Genevieve Noel. Thank you for tuning in today. We are talking about something... Oh no, my headphones. They're gonna pull my planner out of the desk. That I intended to talk about in my last video and never got around to because it became more of a vlog than I thought it was going to be.
Well, the moment you felt you could start over new was the same that you realized the stories were true. You opened your eyes and the world you could see wasn't dim, it was brighter. You'd have to agree. Oh, now your fears are gone. They were buried with the dawn. And oh, now you feel alive for the very first time. Oh, now your fears are gone. They were buried with the dawn. And oh, now you feel alive for the first time. Not hold me yet. Not hold me yet. No, you're not home yet. No, not home. But you finally found the way.
Great intro, I know. Today we're talking about my wedding planning business. Sorry about my knees, this is how I'm comfy. Accept me. I have touched on this here and there in the past few videos because I did have a wedding really recently, but I kind of wanted to talk about like what my process was for those of you who are new here and have never really heard my process before. I started my own business in 2020, at the very end of 2020, a wedding planning business, and it has been doing pretty well for me. I have had like 5 or 6 client weddings. I've got another one coming up in May. Also happens to be a friend's wedding, but I am also working it, so it's like a little bit of both. And then I have 7 more for the rest of the year. And one that I'm potentially taking on in July, but I'm not exactly sure what my calendar looks like in July, so I want to talk to her about it. I want to talk a little bit about how my process worked. I started this business, and basically what I did was I set up my website. I reached out to some friends to get some like unpaid experience kind of stuff, like putting together elements of their weddings and things like that, just to get more experience on like the professional side so that I could really start putting my services out there. After I did a little bit of that, I paid for advertising on the Wedding Wire and the Knot. If you guys know anything about planning weddings, if you've ever planned a wedding, or if you've ever helped someone plan a wedding, or even looked up anything wedding related, the Knot or the Wedding Wire has probably come up in your searches, or you've used it to search for vendors. I paid for advertising on the site because it's a paid advertising site. That's how they make money. That's how they work. And you get advertised, and that's how people can find you. Now, as far as I understand, even if you're not, once you no longer advertise with them, you still can get like inquiries and things like that because you are still listed as a vendor on the site. You are just no longer like an advertised vendor. So you're there, so if people like see your name somewhere and they want to look you up, they can find you on the Knot or the Wedding Wire. But you're not like advertised. So when they search, like for me, they would search wedding planners in this area. I would just pop up. Instead, they actually have to search my name to find me because I'm no longer advertised. And as far as I understand, that's how the site works. I've actually been logged out of my account for like a hot minute because you don't have to be logged in to answer inquiries or receive like the update emails. So if I ever get like a review or anything from a client, I don't need to be logged in to have that approved or put on my like page, so people can still see all the positive reviews and things like that, and I can still answer client inquiries in a timely manner without having to be logged into my account because I can directly reply to their emails. Anyway, if you want to hear more about the Knot and Wedding Wire, please let me know, and I would be glad to talk about it and kind of my overall experience. It was generally good, but just with the way things were moving in my life, non-work wise, non-wedding wise, I decided to discontinue my advertising through the Knot and Wedding Wire at the start of this year. It was honestly the best choice for me, and I just chose to pursue Facebook as my sole form of advertisement. I have some really, really awesome friends and previous clients who are really great at, they suggest me all the time and they're super awesome. And I have booked a number of weddings just because of the service. Sorry about Gregory walking back and forth. He's just hanging out. Sorry if that's distracting. But anyway, so now I am solely like a Facebook advertiser, kind of. That's the only advertising that I do, besides word of mouth through friends and family, things like that. As far as Facebook goes, I do have a professional Facebook page. I created one shortly after creating my website, and I was kind of set to go. Now, one of the things that I had to figure out is because I had a service, I had to figure out what my pricing looked like. I wanted to be very transparent with my pricing so that people could come to my website, look at what I generally charged, and be able to make a decision, way outside of my tax bracket, or yep, this is more of what I'm looking for, but it says negotiable, so maybe it is exactly what I'm looking for. And then be able to reach out to me and get an inquiry. Because the biggest issue that I had with vendors for a lot of things, but primarily when I was planning my wedding personally, was that I could not find if their prices were even worth talking about. Because why would I waste my time talking to a venue that was $5,000 more than what I could afford? That wastes their time, that wastes my time. I don't want to do that. No one does. So that was one thing that was really important to me when I set up my pricing. So what I did is I looked at comparable vendors in the area, which, let me tell you, for a field that is not saturated in your area, that is very, very empty, it's really, really hard to find comparable services to use to judge your pricing. It was possible because I found a lot of planning websites and a lot of different wedding coordinators that I could look at their sites, but they were either located out of state or in a very large different city than where I'm living and primarily doing my work, etc. So once I did finally find some things and then kind of talk about, okay, they have this experience or this kind of background or these, individuals work for them or whatever it was, I kind of took that into account, and then initially I was like, I'm going to price myself more than 50% less than what my competitors are at because I have less than 50% of their experience. And some of the best advice that I got, which I didn't want to believe, was do not underprice yourself for your services. Just because you didn't have as many weddings of experience did not mean that my services weren't as good. And people did know. I let them know right away, I am new. I had my established business time frame. And when people asked, how many weddings have you done? I would give them, my general estimate. This is how many weddings I've been involved with in terms of planning or coordinating. This is how many I've done professionally. And I was upfront with them. So they knew that what they were getting into, but they also could see the price difference. And it was enough for them to trust that, yeah, she's going to do a good job because she is making a decent amount of money and she's not going to be willing to lose out on that money if she doesn't do her job. But also, she's significantly cheaper, so it's something that I can still afford, which is a huge factor in what I wanted to offer people. Even when I get to the point, and even now when I'm pricing, I price much higher in terms of what I was initially pricing at, probably 2 to 3 times more than what I was initially pricing at, which was way, 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 way less than what my time was worth, but still almost a third of what most people offering my services are priced at. So I'm still valuing my time, and I value my experience much more now that I have a lot more experience, but I'm also keeping myself at a lower price point because my whole goal was to be able to offer something more affordable to more people. So once I figured out kind of where my pricing was, and I just had a general idea of what I wanted to do, I waited. I waited until I got an inquiry. And then I had to navigate how I wanted to do my inquiries, because people would ask, you get all types of different inquiries. Anything from what services do you offer to what is your pricing? Are you available this date? So obviously easy questions like, are you available? Yeah, or no, I'm not. Easy question, really easy to answer. Although for, a first-time business owner, if it was my birthday, I don't know, do I want to work a wedding on my birthday? Do I not want to work a wedding on my birthday? Is it worth it? Those were things that I didn't think I'd have to think about, and I really did. So there's still a little bit of they're not as easy as they may seem, but on the whole, they're pretty easy. Yeah, I'm available, or no, I'm not available. Pretty easy answers. Then it was things like, what services do you offer? Now, this was something that I had determined when I set my website into motion. I needed to know what I was offering my clients and what I was willing to do. And of course, I was flexible and wanted to learn along the way, so I kept some room for flexibility in my website. I made a list of some of the services that I thought that might be useful to clients at certain junctures in their wedding, whether it was planning or on the wedding day, and then just listed some services that I would include in that base price, just as these things are part of the general services. And then I added the word "and more," because I didn't know exactly what I was willing to do and not willing to do. And that was the whole point of having an inquiry. Being able to talk with your client about what they want and seeing if you're willing to do it or not. If it's something that's worth it for you, if you're comfortable with it, etc., based on your services. For example, I decided pretty quickly after talking to like one or two clients, I did not want to handle vendor payments. To me, it is just very unsafe for me to be handed a large check or sum of money and that to go to the vendor, because not only is it exchanging another set of hands, and although I know that my clients can trust me, I don't know that I can trust my clients' vendors. And because I didn't have experience with most of their vendors, and I do not restrict my clients to certain vendors, like I will only work with XYZ vendors, I have decided that I will create a list of vendors that I will not work with. If something were to happen, I will blacklist vendors. If you have XYZ as vendors, I will not be able to service your wedding due to incidents that I've had with those vendors. That is something I decided that I will be doing. But regardless, I decided I did not want to handle that payment because I don't know the vendors. I don't work for the vendors. I'm not contracted by the vendors. But if for whatever reason I get the money to the vendor and the vendor decides to tell the bride and groom that I didn't pay them, I have no proof of me giving them that money. Like, yeah, they can ask around and maybe somebody saw me giving them that money. Maybe they can vouch for me. Maybe they won't. Maybe they don't know. And I didn't want that liability. Having hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to give to vendors on the day of the wedding for the bride and groom might be convenient for the bride and groom, but it's very, very risky for me. So it was something that I decided pretty early on I was not willing to do. If they wanted me to give them suggestions on ways that they could make it easier for themselves, I would be happy to do that. Or if they wanted me to remind them to pay their vendors and be there to witness the exchange, that was also something I could do. I just wouldn't be touching the money. That being said, those were some of the boundaries of things that I will and won't do. Other things that I will do that not a lot of people think about is, sometimes you need a personal attendant type service, but don't need an actual all-day personal attendant. That is something that I decided also very early on that I would offer. So if you need me to be there while you're taking pictures because you don't need me doing anything else, I've already got your decorations set up, everything, all your vendors are good to go, etc., and they can call me away if they need me at any time, I will be there to be your personal attendant, carry around your water or your drinks or help adjust a veil for pictures. Those are things that I'm comfortable and willing to do because for me, I'm just as comfortable with them. To me, that comes naturally with the position. So once I made the decision of what I did and did not want to do, after, a couple of trial and error and talking to clients, I had to decide how I wanted to set up my meetings. Did I want them all to be video calls? Did I want them to be phone calls? Did I care? On top of that, I needed a format. What information did my clients need to know in that phone call? What information didn't they need to know? What information did I need to get to them before we got to the phone call stage? This took me a good probably 25 inquiries before I really got down the method for answering an inquiry. Let me give you an example. When I get an inquiry like, hey, I saw your services and I'd like to know more about them. I'd also like to know about your pricing. This is some general information about when and where my wedding is. Thanks. My response would be as follows. Hi, thank you so much for reaching out. I am or am not available on your date. If I'm not available on their date, which has happened a lot this year with September, I am fully booked, and yet I have been reached out to so much. It does say in bold letters across my website that I am fully booked, and I will be putting something out on Facebook shortly because it is a super common request, but I am fully booked for September. So if I am fully booked, I let a client know, hey, I'm fully booked, but if something opens up, I will be reaching back out to you. So if a date opens up, I go first come, first serve. Whoever was the first one to request that date, I will reach out to them first. If they're no longer interested, I move on and down the line. So everyone has an opportunity, obviously in the order that they came, in case they're still searching for somebody. And if not, great, no hard feelings. I didn't initially have them as a client anyway, so it doesn't really hurt me any. If I am available, I'll say something to the effect of, yes, I'm available. My weddings pricing and services vary greatly depending upon your needs and desires for your wedding. I am a catered service. I cater to your needs, expectations, and desires. We work together to create something that's exactly what you're looking for. So then I'll kind of talk about my base pricing. My base pricing, which is like I don't contract for less than X amount, is $400. Because I'll travel up to 2 hours from my current like home base location, I don't charge a travel fee for anything within that 2 hour radius. And that's why my price is set where it is. On top of that, that is how I value my time. So even if it's only 3 hours to come and set up or 2 hours to do this, that's my pricing. If they ask me to do some other things along the way, like meet up to grab some decorations that's 20 miles away or 40 miles away, and I know that it's something that I can easily do, I include all of that in my services. That's not an additional thing that I'm going to charge on unless it's either outrageous gas prices or really far distance or something that is additional above and beyond what I am typically and comfortably able to offer my clients. So it really just depends on the client. Like I said, it's really customized to them. So I'll let them know and then I'll ask, tell me a little bit about your wedding and your vision for your wedding so that I can see if I'd be a good fit for you. Once they kind of give me a rundown of, what they're thinking of, maybe some more details, lots of people like to give like guest count, location, which is really important in terms of travel fee. And kind of what their vision is. Once they send me that email, I usually respond something to the effect of, okay, this is what I'm seeing from my perspective and my experience with the weddings I've worked with that I would be doing. If this sounds like what you're looking for, would you like to move forward in scheduling a phone call or a video call to just go over some of these details more in depth and see if we'd be a good fit for each other? From that point forward, typically I get the response of, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for, plus XYZ details. And then some people will add details, some people say that's exactly what they want, some people will change it just a little bit, but for the most part, I've gotten really good at kind of anticipating, this is the type of thing that people need and want, and that's what they're looking for. From there, I'll usually give them a range estimate of what their cost is looking at. Because my prices vary greatly by hour, I don't charge hourly per se, but if I'm looking at a wedding that's 6 hours, I'm going to price that differently than a wedding that's 8 hours and 1 hour drive away. If I'm looking at a wedding that's 4.5 hours and an hour away, that's also going to be priced differently. Even though the distance is the same, the time frame that I'm spending there and how it affects my day is really the important and key issue for me in terms of pricing. So we'll give them kind of a range of what I'm seeing their pricing being kind of the top and low end of the budget that I could envision, and then we set up a phone call. If they show up, great, fabulous. 90% of my clients do show, well, actually more like 95 at this point, show up to their phone call. I've only had one person that's canceled on me in the past 6 months. And I've had a number of inquiries. From there, I kind of, have to do my rundown. So what I do is I tell them, I'm going to go through a few things, confirm the details that I have, make sure I didn't get anything confused or misread over email. And then I'm going to kind of talk through what I think you're wanting in terms of services. We can nail it down a little bit more specifically, and I can give you a price estimate. Then I give you some disclosures, and you can ask any questions you have from there. Most people are like, yep, great, that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll start by kind of reviewing, this is the date, this is the location, this is the bride and groom's name or whomever, and, any details that we've already talked about via email. Then I'll run through what I'm thinking of in terms of hours, day time frame, ask any questions I might have, and then I allow them to kind of ask questions at this point too, like, is there anything that I may have missed that you're wanting on your wedding day that you can think of right now that you'd like to, include in these services that I can give you a better price estimate for? Usually the answer is no, and then I'll talk a little bit about my assistant service. I do have 2 assistants that I will offer. They go at a certain rate, and if you want them, great. If not, great. From there, I give them my disclosures. So things like my COVID policy, my refund policy, what the next steps look like. So if they decide they want to move forward, what does that look like? What does my contract look like? How can they pay me? How does the payment plan work? Do they get a discount if they pay in full? All those kinds of questions I kind of go through as quickly as I can just to let them know what I do and what my setup is. And then I kind of leave it open to them. What haven't I answered yet for you? What questions do you have? What thoughts do you have? What more can I do to give you everything you need to know to make an informed decision? Typically, the answer is nothing because I do try to be as thorough as possible in my explanation so that people can just get the information and not have to have the pressure of asking a bunch of questions. And a lot of people will just be good from there, and then I'll be like, okay, this is the time frame that I would recommend getting back to me. I can't guarantee anything, and if somebody does book the date before you, I will let you know that they're looking before they book, so that you have that opportunity. But otherwise, get back to me whenever you're available and ready, because and if they go with somebody else, I always make sure to say, if you have other interviews to do or other decisions that you need to make, I want to be the right fit for you. And if I'm not the right fit, I don't have any problem with that. I'd much rather you get what you need and want for your wedding day than settle for the person that pressured you into the best deal. I try very, very hard to make sure all of my clients are very comfortable with that, whether they're potential clients or actual clients and end up signing with me or not. I want them to know that my priority is their wedding, and whether that means that I'm there or not, that's the important part. From there, I just wait to hear back from them. After a week or 2, I will reach out if I haven't heard from them, depending upon whatever I told them in my consultation over the phone, and just say, hey, no hurry, just want to know if you've made any progress in your decision. If you had any other questions for me, I'm here, but take your time and make your decision. A lot of times from there, people will be like, this is where I'm at with my decision making, and this is all the time I need, or the question that I have. And within a day or 2 of sending a follow-up email, if it's necessitated, is usually when a decision is made and I'm able to either book with that client and move forward, or say thank you so much for your time and move on to the next person. Now, what my services look like if people book me. So what happens is they tell me, yay, I want to move forward, fabulous. As long as it's not after like 6 o'clock or I'm not working that day, I will create my client's contract by that night, send it out to them, and they have a week to look it over and sign it. If there's something they want to change, they can absolutely make those changes and let me know whatever they are. I resend it out, and again, the process continues until they are comfortable and they sign. Once the signature on their contract is complete, they do get to keep a copy if they'd like it. If they don't have to. I keep a copy for myself, and then I tell them how they can make their payment. I accept 2 forms of payment primarily, and then they have 2 payment options. They can either pay in full or they can make a payment on their payment plan. They just have to put the deposit amount down. Now, for a lot of vendors, they do require a 50% deposit, and for something like photography, I totally get that. But for me, because the amount of work that I do prior to the wedding is so minimal, I only require a 10% deposit, and then, they have to make regular payments. I do try to be as flexible as I can with my clients, but I do make sure they know that communication is key, and if they aren't communicating, then I cannot help them. It's all very laid out for them. It's in the contract that they sign. It's all there. But once they sign their contract and everything, I send over 3 documents to them that help in the planning process. We go through their planning process with monthly meetings, and then I show up on the day of the wedding as needed and do whatever it is that they expect of me. It's a pretty smooth process, and because there's a lot of front loading and pre-planning, most of my weddings, I haven't encountered a wedding where things haven't gone smoothly. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't encounter issues or things that come up during weddings or the planning process, etc., that might cause an issue. So that's kind of what my wedding planning business process looks like. If you are interested in hearing any more about this or about any specific details, you can either ask me on Instagram or comment down below and ask any questions that you might have. Otherwise, if you have just general wedding planning questions and you'd like to hear from a planner's perspective the answer to some of those questions, please put them down below. I'd love to answer them or make a video if they're a little bit more complicated answers. If you aren't following me yet on Instagram, head on over there. It's Genevieve Noel Books. I can do a Q&A on this too if it is requested in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I do appreciate you listening to the information that I have for you. If you are a vendor or a bride or a groom or whomever you might be, good luck. I know it is a rough world out there, and I am here to answer any questions you might have. Just let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Love, Genevieve.